Like and subscribe right now, or this spider will crawl on your face while you're sleeping.
Disney has designed a system for their amusement parks that usually runs very smoothly. People love returning to Disney World and Disneyland every single year because there's so much to do and see. Pretty sure a lot of you watching today must have some great memory with your time at Disney. However, it's not always rainbows and sunshine at Disney. The sheer magnitude of the number of rides and attractions, combined with the millions of people who come in and out of the parks each year, the odds that something will inevitably go wrong. So here are the 10 things that have went terribly wrong at Disney. Let's go. Number 10. The Not So Magic Carpet Ride. At Disney Park, live musical shows reenact some of the most famous scenes of animated films. Kids love watching their favorite real characters on stage. Usually the live performances have some sort of show-stopping feature that amazes everyone in the theater. And in the case of Disney's Aladdin, a musical spectacular, there is a real magic carpet that lifts in the air during a song, A Whole New World. In September of 2011, the illusion was shattered when the actors were lifted up, and then suddenly, the supports snapped. The carpet flipped upside down, and the actors were dangling from a single harness, swinging back and forth like a pendulum. Audience members quickly pulled up their phones and recorded videos and photos while shouting, "Hold on!" and "Please catch them, please!" The lights dimmed, and the pre-recorded voice asked the audience to leave. Thankfully, the safety harnesses were strong enough to hold the actors, and they were rescued without any injuries.
Before we move on, I've got a little challenge for you that will take just 5 seconds to complete. So here's the deal. You just leave a like on this video, smash that subscribe button, and hit the notification bell, and you get 25 years of amazing luck. Try it. It really works.
Number 9. Faulty Float Maintenance. Jamie and Ella Borokova traveled all the way from Uruguay to visit Disney World in Orlando, Florida in 1991 for their wedding anniversary. They were watching a parade on Main Street, USA, when the driver of the Snow White float lost control and hit the curb. One of the doors went flying into the crowd, snagging some of the lights from the float along with them. Everything came crashing down on Elena. The light bulbs from the float were so hot that she received severe burns on her leg. She was rushed to the hospital where doctors performed skin graft surgery. While in the hospital, a representative from Disney World showed up in Elena's room. They handed the couple a measly $1,222, which was probably just a refund for their stay at the park, and a contract that absolved Disney of any responsibility for Elena's injury. The only problem is, the paperwork was in English and Jamie and Elena only spoke Spanish. When they returned to Uruguay, Elena's leg got worse, and it was painful for her to walk. She continued to need medical treatment for her leg, and it completely changed her life. A lawyer eventually helped to sue Disney, and they won up to $100,000 because the judge agreed that the contract wasn't valid since they had no understanding of what it said. Number 8. Self-absorbed safety hazard. In 2015, selfie sticks became a fad. People used them with their phones to take photos and videos of all their friends. However, it could be incredibly stupid to pull a selfie stick out on a roller coaster that dips at fast speeds and then loops upside down, because it would likely fall out of the person's hand and then injure or even kill somebody. In June 2015, common sense did not stop one park guest from pulling out their selfie stick on the California Screaming roller coaster ride. Once park employees spotted the selfie stick, they completely stopped the roller coaster while guests were in the air, just before it had a chance to drop. For 2 hours, park guests were suspended in the roller coaster, and there was emergency evacuation. The name of the selfie stick owner was left out of the media, which usually indicates that they're probably a minor. Since the incident, Disney parks have made it very clear that guests are not allowed to use selfie sticks because they are a distracting safety hazard. Now there are no selfie stick signs all over parks. Number 7. Lane Graves. It was a warm evening in June at Disney World's Grand Florida Resort in Orlando. The Graves family were visiting from a small town in Nebraska on a Disney World vacation. It was 9 at night and everyone was sitting outside ready to watch the fireworks. They would have never known that it's dangerous to be around the lakes at night in Florida, so they allowed their 2-year-old son, Lane, to play near the edge of Disney's Seven Seas Lagoon. It's a man-made lake in the middle of a luxurious resort, so while his parents were keeping an eye on him to make sure he didn't go into the water, they never could have anticipated what happened next. Out of the darkness, an alligator snatched the toddler up and pulled him into the water. Lane's father immediately sprinted towards his son and tried to wrestle the alligator, but it was futile. The creature pulled his son underwater. The next day, scuba divers found and killed 5 alligators from the lake before they could recover Lane's body. Number 6. A few too many. Certain areas of Disney parks serve beer and wine at their restaurants and even designated certain locations for drinking, like Trader Sam's Enchanted Tiki Bar, which stops allowing children after 8 p.m. Considering that it's mainly a place for families and children, most people hold back from their heavy drinking. It doesn't make a lot of sense to pay hundreds of dollars for a Disney experience just to get blackout drunk, except in the case of a 53-year-old man named Glenn Horlocker. That is exactly what he did. In February 2012, Glenn Horlocker was visiting Disney California's Adventure and got completely wasted. He was standing outside the Tower of Terror, apparently being loud and vulgar. Glenn was asked to stop by an employee because he was disturbing nearby families. Glenn responded by throwing punches. A few visitors to the park jumped to hold him back. He continued to yell, kick, and act violently. Someone pulled out their phone and started recording just as a Disney security guard calmly approached and pepper sprayed Glenn in the face. Glenn Horlocker was escorted out of the park and arrested for assaulting the park employee. Number 5. The unmarked van. Disney doesn't want anything to ruin their magical image. Whenever something goes wrong, they try to handle it as discreetly as possible. In 1981, an 18-year-old named Mel Yorba was at a private party in Tomorrowland. He got into a fight with a 28-year-old man named James O'Driscoll. Things escalated quickly, and James stabbed Mel. Instead of calling 911, park employees called a Disneyland nurse. Security brought Mel over to a black unmarked van, and the nurse, who was arguably unqualified to treat such a stab wound, drove him to the hospital, but he died. Mel's parents sued Disney, claiming that if they had just called 911 in the first place, they would have been entirely trained paramedics giving him the proper medical attention immediately, and he might still be alive. They lost the court case for a lack of evidence. In a New York Times article from 1981, Disney publicly denied that they chose not to call 911 as a way to protect their image, and they honestly felt like they gave Mel Yorba adequate medical treatment. However, in 2000, it was actually proven in court that their policy was, in fact, aimed to protect Disney's image. Employees were taught that if anyone got injured, they must call security guards first instead of 911. After the tragic mutilation and eventual death of a 4-year-old named Brandon Zucker, the family sued Disney, and they finally changed their employee policy so that 911 is called right away instead. Number 4. It's a rough world after all. Disneyland opened in 1955, and one of the first popular attractions was It's a Small World. Back in the 50s, there were very few places that thought about the needs of disabled people. And even in 1990, when the Americans with Disabilities Act was created, companies usually only upgraded things that were absolutely necessary to comply with the new law. The very vintage It's a Small World ride broke down several times on March 28, 2013, and yet park employees did not shut it down. They kept trying to make small fixes before reopening it to let more passengers. A quadriplegic man named Jose Martinez was in one of the boats, and he and his wife entered a dark cave filled with speakers blaring loud music. Suddenly, the ride jolted to a stop, and since he was in his wheelchair, the maddening It's a Small World song was blaring directly into Jose's ear, and as he paralyzed, he couldn't escape. On top of his paralysis, Jose suffers from panic attacks combined with a condition called dysreflexia, which causes sudden spikes in blood pressure. Darkness, loud music, and inability to evacuate were excruciating combination for Jose. For 30 minutes, he was trying to call for help, pleading to be taken off the ride or turn off the music at the very least. But there was no way to get him out of the tunnel since he's in a wheelchair. In retrospect, the situation could have been far worse, but the point of the entire experience is that Disney was not prepared to help. Jose Martinez and his family sued Disney, trying to get them to change their evacuation policy for disabled park guests. The judge awarded Jose $8,000 for his emotional suffering, but chose not to force Disney to change anything, except to warn disabled people next time if a ride is having issues. Number 3. The anti-vaxxer outbreak. In 2015, an 11-year-old child whose parents refused to vaccinate their kid caught measles. Then they took a trip to Disneyland. This child became patient zero of what ended up becoming a countrywide epidemic, and it all started with one day in the park. The Center of Disease Control was able to track down 125 people who caught measles after patient zero entered the park. Out of those 125 people, 39 of them were visiting Disneyland that day, and 34 of them were family members who caught it once an infected person returned home from Disney. A total of 110 of them lived in California, so many of these people caught it randomly once the virus out in public. The vast majority of the people who caught measles were never vaccinated either. While none of this was Disney's fault, it still became a major incident in the park's history, and it's an illustration of how quickly an epidemic can begin in a place with so many people. And now get ready for today's top pick. Number 2, look out below. Disney's Skyway ride is a gondola lift that suspended guests as high as 60 feet off the ground. People rode along the cable to the opposite side of the park, and it was seen as a convenient method of transportation that ran all day, every day. In 1994, a 30-year-old man named Randall Charles fell from the Skyway when it was 20 feet off the ground and landed in a tree. The park rescue team had to get him down, and he was taken to a hospital with a few minor injuries. He tried to sue Disney for $25,000, claiming that the Skyway was dangerous and that he fell out. Later, he admitted that he actually opened the door and jumped out on purpose, so that case was dropped. The Skyway was eventually removed from Disneyland, but the reasons for its removal had nothing to do with Randall Charles' incident. Number 1. To Infinity and Beyond. For years, if an accident happened on a ride at Disneyland Park, the company was not required to report it to the California Division of Occupational Safety and Health, or Cal OSHA for short. In 1997, Cal OSHA discovered that 7,260 people were admitted to the emergency room for injuries due to amusement park ride malfunctions, which was significantly higher than previous years. Because of this, they passed a state law that amusement parks need annual safety inspections on all of their rides, and accidents where people are hurt need to be reported within 24 hours. The first accident at Disneyland that was reported to Cal OSHA was a crash on Space Mountain in the year 2000. One of the cars derailed after a wheel flew off, and 9 people had to go to the hospital. A man named Ray Gomez was crushed inside of his seat, and the fire department had to remove bolts from the ride just to get him out. Unlike past quick fixes performed by unqualified mechanics, Disney actually closed down the ride for several days and hired professionals who could make sure the issues were repaired because they knew that OSHA would be hearing about it. Disney is known for its discretion, payoffs to keep quiet, and downplaying park incidents. Knowing that they didn't have to report incidents for nearly 50 years, one can only imagine how many major malfunctions took place at Disneyland that the world will never know. Thank you so much for watching today's video. We hope that you enjoyed it. Please stay tuned for some more great content.